Hello, and welcome to Credit Careercast, brought to you by Highako. This week, Dave Schmidt talks with Jerry Flum of Credit Risk Monitor about the September 6th Wall Street Journal article titled "Junk Loan Defaults Worry Wall Street Investors." This rung the alarm bells, and they had to break it down. With that, over to you, Dave.
Hello, this is Dave Schmidt for Credit Today. I'm pleased to be here with Jerry Flum. Jerry's with the CEO of Credit Risk Monitor. It's always good to talk to Jerry about all things in terms of risk and credit ratings and the economy and things like that. So it's good to have you here, Jerry.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
So what we want to talk about today is there was an article in the September 6th Wall Street Journal. To quote from the article, it said defaults on so-called leveraged loans hit $6 billion in August, the highest monthly total since October 2020 when pandemic shutdowns hobbled the U.S. economy, according to Fitch Ratings. The figure represents a fraction of the sprawling loan market, which doubled over the past decade to about $1.5 trillion. So let's start this discussion, and we're going to obviously be looking at corporate debt throughout it, but let's start by defining leverage loans. And along with that, please give us some context in terms of the total corporate debt market, Jerry.
Well, David, I think numbers, whether we use billions or trillions or millions, is one of these real difficult, do you pick the right alphabet letter to start your Ilion with? Look, at the end of the day, it's corporate debt as a percentage of GDP so that we can get some relativity. And I think that's the real problem. Our GDP in the United States is, 22, 23 trillion, some number like that, depending on whose number you use. So when you talk about corporate debt being in, areas of trillions of dollars, in this case, corporate debt is roughly 12 or 13 trillion dollars. It's, in the context of 50% plus of GDP. So it's a huge market. Corporations are really leveraged up, and there's a reason why they're leveraged up. And I think that's the key thing to understand. For the most part, the wolves in the forest are there to be a natural predator for reindeer, or the reindeer are going to take over the forest. So when you look at debt, there has to be a natural predator that prevents debt just being issued and issued and issued and issued. And the predator in the debt market, whether it be corporate, government, or personal or mortgage, but certainly in the corporate marketplace, the natural predator is called interest rate. So if interest rates go up, it gets harder and harder to borrow a lot of money. If you borrow $50 billion and the interest rate is 15%, it's pretty hard to get any rate of return on that borrowed money. However, on the other extreme, if interest rates are half of 1 point, you might as well keep borrowing until somebody comes in and shoots you. And that's the structure that occurred all over the world. The governments came in through central banks and also in the way they ran their treasuries and artificially lowered interest rates. And lo and behold, debt skyrocketed for corporations. If you can borrow, I'm making the number up here, if you can borrow at 3% and you can get a 4.5% or 5% return on the borrowings, you're making 2 points on the difference. Let me tell you, that's a great business, and that's a great thing. And that's what basically what the governments of the world did. So the question is, why did they do it? The central banks of the world, while it's kind of hip to say they're all run by, mediocre people, probably not true. They're run by reasonably smart people. They got tons of smart people in there. So what is it that allows these people to be continually wrong here and lower interest rates? So now the debt levels are astronomical. And part of it is, at a certain point in an economy, you get too much debt. And you get it, in this case, at a very low interest rate. So what happens is the people at the central banks, when they start to look at how do we correct this thing, and they start to increase interest rates, if you have massive amounts of debt out already at lower interest rates, you run the risk of causing a severe recession, possibly depression. And so it's pretty scary. So you keep kicking the can down the road and you keep it making interest rates more available or interest rates more palatable to lend more and more debt. And that's what's occurred here. Now, the form of it, whether it be a junk bond or it be a leveraged loan, has contextual differences that are important. The wonderful thing about loans is the interest rate is variable, where on a bond, it's a junk bond loan or a double B or whatever, and it's at a fixed interest rate. And therefore, the corporation that's borrowing the money and the community that lent the money have a fixed interest rate. And therefore, they're both making a bet on where interest rates are going. And then what happened is somebody said, like, hey, why don't we make the interest rate variable? In other words, it starts to go up and down as market rates go up and down. So what happens is the risk of changing interest rates is put into a variable for the lender and the borrower to both deal with it. And because of that, it's been a lot easier for people out in the world who are concerned about lending money to corporations, especially risky ones, at low interest rates, if in fact rates go up. You take away some of that risk by having the rate be a variable. And so lenders got more and more interested in lending to corporations with this variable interest rate, and therefore the corporate loan market came into being, and it's a huge market now, the corporate debt market, somewhat close to 50 or whatever number, 50% plus of GDP. So it's huge. That's just corporate, not counting government, not counting personal mortgages, car loans, and all that other good stuff.